Good morning. I'm here this morning with our Division of Emergency Management Director, Kevin Guthrie, our head of the Florida National Guard, Jim Eifert, Transportation Secretary Jared Perdue, and Gracia Check from FEMA. As of 8 a.m. this morning, Hurricane Ian is located roughly 200 miles south of Key West. It's moving north at 12 miles per hour and is anticipated to exit land in Cuba very soon. It is now a major hurricane, Category 3 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. Overnight and into this morning, some of the modeling that has been done is now projecting a landfall south of Tampa Bay. I know we've talked about the cone of uncertainty where the landfall was projected. We had it in North Florida just a couple days ago. That's consistently been moved more east into the Florida Peninsula. Yesterday evening, there were a lot of solutions bringing it right into Tampa Bay. Now you have a lot of solutions bringing the landfall into the Sarasota area. There's still uncertainty with where that exact landfall will be. But just understand the impacts are going to be far, far broader than just where the eye of the storm happens to make landfall. In some areas, there will be catastrophic flooding and life-threatening storm surge. And so if you're on Florida's Gulf Coast, from Naples all the way through the Tampa Bay area and some of the counties north of that, that could be something that happens. And it will certainly happen in some parts of Florida's Gulf Coast. Now, I know there's folks in southwest Florida who remember Hurricane Charlie was projected to make a direct impact into Tampa Bay, and then it turned and went into southwest Florida. I would just say the track may end up doing something similar, but this is a much different storm. Charlie was a lot smaller. It was powerful. It was a Category 4. Most of the damage from Charlie was from wind and wind destruction. What we have here is really historic storm surge and flooding potential. And so if you're looking at those places in Fort Myers, Charlotte County, Sarasota, the storm surge that you're going to see generated from this is going to far eclipse what we saw there. And so as you look to see what is going on with the local counties, there's evacuation orders that are in place on all these counties from Pasco and Pinellas down to the Fort Myers area. And our recommendation is to heed those evacuation orders. What those evacuation orders are doing is identifying people that live in areas that are vulnerable to major storm surge. And that storm surge can be life-threatening. There's certain things we can protect against in terms of the wind and the structures, and we've got great building codes. But when you have 5 to 10 feet of storm surge, that is not something that you want to be a part of. And Mother Nature is a very fearsome adversary. So please heed those warnings. You do not need to evacuate to another state. You don't need to go hundreds of miles away. There's shelters that are open in all of these counties at this point. The important part of if you're under an evacuation order is evacuate to higher ground that is going to be safe from the type of surge and flooding that we're fearing with this storm. Of course, there's certain Floridians that may live in mobile homes or manufactured housing that would be vulnerable. If you're under an order, of course, you want to be in a structure that is going to be able to withstand some of the hurricane winds. But by and large, we're looking at really, really major storm surge up and down the west coast of Florida. There are people that, of course, are evacuating on different roadways. There has been traffic, but there has not yet been the backups where FDOT and FHP have opened the emergency shoulder lanes. They will do that once sustained speeds are at 40 miles per hour or less. And so when that happens, they will make that call. People will be able to use those, but don't use it until then, because that obviously, carries some risk if people, don't know that that's something that is going on. You also can use things like Gas Buddy to find gas stations in the area that have fuel. And I would note, if you look at these updated tracks that we've been getting this morning, and I think you'll probably see that reflected in the 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center, you have potential paths of the storm entering Florida's Gulf Coast, cutting across the state and exiting into the Atlantic Ocean. That means some of those counties that are more interior, you could absolutely see power outages. You could see inland flooding. You could see various types of tree and damage from wind. So just be prepared for that. We were here 48 hours ago, and most of the solutions had it going up the coast, the west coast of Florida. Well, now most of them have it ramming into the state of Florida and cutting across. And so just be prepared for that and understand that that's something that could be happening. Visit Florida has partnered with Expedia to launch an emergency accommodations page. Anyone who has been ordered to evacuate can use this page to find available accommodations in other areas of the state by visiting expedia.com/Florida. Again, expedia.com/Florida. We have about 2.5 million Floridians that are currently under some type of an evacuation order. Make sure you know your evacuation zones, so you can find that at floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. And of course, if you are called upon to evacuate, make sure you take care of your pets. Don't leave your pets behind when you're evacuating. There's pet-friendly shelters. There's things that can be done to take care of pets. We want to make sure. So there is information about planning for your pet at floridadisaster.org/plan-prepare. We want to make sure that we're taking care of our friends. To find shelters, again, visit floridadisaster.org/shelters. floridadisaster.org/shelters. Most of these counties are going to have shelters within the county that are in higher ground. The buildings are going to be hurricane proof. They're going to be able to withstand a Category 3 hurricane in terms of the winds, but it's going to put you in a situation where you're not going to be vulnerable to the effects of the storm surge and the effects of the flooding. We have, of course, suspended tolls starting yesterday to assist people who may be moving around the state and following evacuation orders. You can look at those facilities at fdot.gov that list them. We may add more if there's a need to do that as the storm impacts other parts of the state, and we will make that announcement at the appropriate time. We have 26 school districts that have announced school closures, and you may very well have more as the track becomes more certain. If you want the most updated school information, go to fldoe.org/storminfo, fldoe.org/storminfo. We have 5,000 National Guardsmen that are activated. We've got 2,000 additional Guardsmen from other states, and I know Jim's been talking with other states, to help us with even more assets. We do have our urban search and rescue teams activated. We have 3 additional teams on standby, ready to deploy. Our FWC has officers placed in every county in anticipation of heavy rains and flooding. And you will see heavy rains in parts of the state that are not necessarily on Florida's Gulf Coast. We also have high water vehicles and shallow draft boats that are ready for immediate deployment to the affected areas. We also have FWC's aviation section placed on standby, and it's ready. All appropriate aircraft are ready for deployment for search and rescue and post-storm damage assessments as needed. FHP has implemented their 12-hour shifts. They've mobilized additional state troopers to the Gulf Coast. And, of course, our partners in the U.S. Coast Guard are standing by and are able and willing to assist. We do report today 100% of operating long-term care facilities do have a generator on site. Of course, we have a state of emergency for all 67 counties. We are going to keep that in place. I think if you look at the tracks that have come out this morning, the chance that you have major impacts in Northwest Florida, of course, have declined. But we also understand there's going to be people that are going to be evacuating, and we want to give every county flexibility to help their fellow Floridians. We have issued the waivers of weights for commercial trucks. We want the fuel and the resources continuing to come into the state. We've spoken with our partners there. They're going to keep doing it until it's no longer safe to do so, because they understand how important it is. We do have emergency refills of maintenance prescriptions. Those are authorized for another 30 days. And we now have 28,000 across the state between our investor-owned utilities, our municipal utilities, and our rural electric co-ops. More than 28,000 linemen are staged for power restorations across the state of Florida. And we understand as the storm hits and passes, the need to be able to restore power as soon as possible for as many Floridians as possible. Make sure you're executing your plan. This is imminent. We appreciate everybody in our counties who've worked very hard to execute their plans. Kevin will talk a little bit more about from the DEM perspective, but we've had about 500 requests for assistance from our counties. The state has fulfilled 466. Some others are on the way, and some will be fulfilled. They just can't be fulfilled until the storm actually hits. We mentioned sending medical professionals to Hillsborough County Special Needs Shelters. We sent another 120 to surrounding counties. We do have our logistical staging area in Polk County, and we will have additional staging later today. 300 ambulances supporting special needs evacuations have been deployed. Hundreds of generators and pumps have been staged, primarily in the Tampa area. And of course, pre-landfall food and water has been staged for Tampa Bay region. Now, as the track has moved a little bit more to where you have potentially greater impacts in Southwest Florida. I mean, we knew you were going to get storm surge all along. I mean, it's just the nature of a storm this big. However, Kevin is going to be mobilizing more resources to be able to assist those counties in the southwest portion of the state of Florida. Again, go to floridadisaster.org/get-a-plan to make sure that you have what you need. You know, you still have time today to execute what you need to do. If you're in an evacuation zone, you have time to be able to heed those orders. If you're not, you have time to be able to get whatever supplies that you may need to deal with what's going to happen over the next few days. I would just tell all Floridians who are in the path of this, you know, there's going to be interruptions in things like power. There's going to be interruptions in fuel, maybe interruptions in communications. That is to be expected, so just plan for that. And of course, all these resources are mobilized to try to restore the services as quickly as possible once it's safe to do so. Safety is paramount. When you're talking about storm surge like this, when you're talking about historic flooding, that water is a very, very difficult adversary. You do not want to put yourself in harm's way unnecessarily. So if you're ordered to evacuate, that's a decision based off of what we're seeing with this storm, what your local officials are seeing with the storm, and the potential impacts that could have on your part of the state of Florida. And doesn't mean you need to go all across God's creation to evacuate. Just get to the higher ground, get into a safe structure. We have shelters open in all those counties now at the county level, and we would encourage people to do that. Once the storm passes, you could be able to get back in your home. We'll be able to assess whatever damage may have occurred and be able to make the necessary improvements and rebuild. But we can't unring the bell if you stay and you end up getting washed away with a historic storm surge or get caught in really, really significant flooding. So Kevin Guthrie is going to say a few words, and then we're also going to have Jared Perdue from FDOT give an update on the traffic situation.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning. I'm going to start with a bullet point that I actually don't have because it was just sent to me, but the National Hurricane Center is now predicting that landfall will be Venice in 35 hours at 125 miles an hour. So again, Venice in 35 hours at 125 miles an hour, making that a major Category 3 landfalling hurricane. We currently have more, as the Governor mentioned, we currently have more than 500 active mission requests from our local partners, and we are working diligently to ensure that all the needs are met. The Governor already mentioned that we are starting to move additional contract staff and additional resources into the Southwest Florida area. We do have the 5 urban search and rescue teams that are on standby, and we are moving those again around the state of Florida. I think it's very important to say that Tampa Bay region, you are not out of the woods yet. There is still going to be a storm surge event in the Tampa Bay region. We're waiting on that data to come in to see what those actual numbers are going to be, but you need to continue to heed the warnings that are in place for Pinellas, Tampa, Manatee, Hillsborough. Do not return yet if you have evacuated. Residents can expect power due to anticipated impacts from the storm statewide. We do have telephone companies on standby. We have the big three wireless companies here in our EOC with us. Floridians should be prepared and have a communications plan in place with their families on how they plan to communicate after the fact. During previous hurricanes, the cell towers did go down. We expect them to go down in this particular event. Residents should have alternate ways to communicate with friends, loved ones, and family. It's also important to remember when an evacuation order is issued, you may only need to evacuate tens of miles, as the governor has mentioned already, instead of hundreds of miles. Many people in the Southwest Florida area, your best bet is going to be evacuate across the state. Just go straight across the state to Broward, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach. Do not try to go north. That will certainly help the Secretary from DOT to help manage that traffic. Do not go north. Go straight across over to Southeast Florida. Residents should take the time now to determine if they live in an evacuation zone. Again, that is available at floridadisaster.org/KNOW or /plan prepare, as the governor has already mentioned. I want to take a moment we've had some calls come into our call-in center. It is not the FEMA flood site. These are evacuation zones on floridadisaster.org. They are not one and the same. We had a lady call in this morning saying, well, it says I live in a zone X. That is a FEMA flood map. That is not a storm surge zone evacuation zone. So please know the difference between the two.